And welcome in to another episode of Heat of the Moment. My name is Micah. I am joined, as always, by my fellow host and friend Lino. And Heat fans, we have a fun show today. We know we are coming off of a couple close losses, but the postseason is very near. We have a lot of things to discuss, including how, in our opinion, this team has looked pretty strong recently, and we're excited about their play. Before we get into the team itself, we do have a couple injury updates, primarily on Andrew Wiggins and Niko Jovic. Wiggins is currently listed as questionable for Monday's game against Philadelphia, which is encouraging. This is the first time he's been listed as questionable, I think, in 5 games. So, good sign the Wiggins could be back within the next couple games. And obviously, as we'll talk about later, the Wednesday game against Chicago is the one you'd really want him back for. So hopefully he'll be ready to go then. Then Nico, he's still ruled out for Philly. There was a report from Ethan Skolnick from 5 Reasons Sports who said ideally the Heat want to get Nico back before the play-in to kind of get him a couple games to acclimate essentially back to game speed. And of course, Heat fans, there's only about 4 games left. So that would mean he'd be coming back pretty soon, maybe before or after the Chicago game. So we'll see. But that's our little injury roundup. Wiggins, it sounds like, is pretty close. So that would be awesome. But Lino, since the last show, the Heat won 3 more. They extended that unpredictable winning streak to 6 games. They lost 10 in a row, then won 6 games in a row. It's the first time in NBA history that has happened, according to Tim Riddles of the Associated Press. And then we did lose 2 close games, one to Memphis on a Ja Morant buzzer beater, and then an overtime loss to Milwaukee. But Lino, overall vibe check from what you've seen from the team lately. Some guys have been in and out of the lineup, but what have you made overall of how the team's looked?
The vibes have been pretty dang good, I have to say. And honestly, it's probably for the best that we lost against Memphis and Milwaukee. Maybe just one of those losses would have been ideal, but I'll take two because had we got onto this podcast and won 8 games straight, we would be saying the most outrageous things right now. And I may still say them. Like, I feel really good about the wins we had. Of course, we won a ton of games against teams we absolutely should beat. It is, a sad state of affairs in the greater context that, being able to go on a win streak with a Philadelphia roster that has nobody on it, that's healthy, as well as beating the Wizards. Like, there were some gimme wins in there, but it's nice that we could take care of business, go on a win streak, put together a bunch of good days as the team has, really harked on trying to do all season. And just the ability to do that really proves, especially after the 10-game loss, the 10-game losing streak, that the talent of this team and the sum of these parts are much greater than we've seen in that 10-game stretch post trade deadline. So it was nice to just see the fruit of the potential for this roster and get some really incredible performance from our favorites like Tyler and Bam, but also guys like Pella Larson, Davion Mitchell, Alec Burks has been the GOAT over several games so far. And I'm really excited to get into those performances. But, how are you feeling right now about the team?
Yeah, I mean, overall, pretty good. It's you and I think you especially would point out during that losing stretch that a lot of those losses, if they weren't coming during a 10-game losing streak, would kind of be like, good performance, just couldn't hold on in the fourth. And that's what a couple of these recent losses have felt like because they were coming after a 6-game winning streak. Memphis is a good team. Milwaukee's got Giannis. So it's like, yeah, it would have been nice to beat those teams for the standings, but the team played hard. I didn't think there were huge flaws in how they executed. I just think they just didn't make quite enough plays down the stretch. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we got strong performances by most of the roster. Honestly, I think everybody, if you were giving them grades, was probably like a B plus at worst.
Well,
And
everybody except one person, but
well, and we could talk about that later. but but yeah, for the most part, good performances overall. But I wanted to talk specifically about that Boston win
Mhm.
because last show we talked about the Golden State win and how much fun that was, and I would say this Boston win might have been the second most fun I've had in a game all season.
No, absolutely.
The Heat, I mean, it sounds kind of oversimplified, but they were just locked in for that Boston game. The energy and intensity level, very similar to the Golden State game, was just I don't know what it was. I mean, we know there's still that rivalry there, for some of the Heat guys, but for whatever reason, the coaching staff, the players, they were ready to go. And I always say, for me defensively, and it sounds funny, Tyler sets the tone so much
Hmm.
because Bam, is going to be locked in.
Yeah.
Davion, those guys are going to be going crazy. But Tyler, when he's active, I feel like that almost tells the rest of the team, like, oh, like if Tyler's locked in, we all have to be getting after it right now.
Mhm.
And he was really locked in on the defensive end, and then put together really a master class on the offensive end against Boston while being guarded by elite defenders. What did you see from Tyler in the Boston game and just overall kind of post losing streak?
I just saw, well, really, the realization I came to there in that game with Tyler was harkening back to the beginning of the season, a few months into the season, halfway through the season. The whole time, my brain is just like, is this really Tyler Herro? Like, at what point in time does the shot get really inefficient? Do things look like the old Tyler Herro where there were flashes, but a lot of inconsistency? And the whole time I was just like, man, any day now he could kind of just fall off a cliff. And then after the All-Star break, I was like, he's getting kind of, these performances are not being as effective as they were before he became an All-Star. And I know that was a big deal for him. And it can kind of be difficult to get things going again after you lose a lot of that adrenaline from trying to reach a goal of that magnitude. And so I was really concerned. I've been kind of on pins and needles all season, but during this Boston game, I was like, no, this is literally just who he is. Like, he is that guy. He is him. Like, he can do this on a night to night basis against some of the best competition. And this was the best example of that. He was just letting the offense come to him, but also getting to the things that he wanted to. He controlled the pace whenever he had the possessions, and he got into some incredible scoring grooves. I was just really impressed with how he was able to score all over the floor, and the effort was there. His dribble is so clean, his shot is so pure right now. And even when he's missing, there's still so much effort. I think there was one situation where he was taking somebody on an ISO. It breaks off the rim. He does like a pull up jumper, breaks off the rim. He gets the rebound and gets the put back basket. And he shot that ball from like 10 feet out. And so he wasn't anywhere near the rim. And just the effort to make things happen, and the rest of the team to be able to follow suit behind him. You can also see his influence like in other players. Guys are getting to their like mid range floater bag, like before, guys who've never shot a floater before are shooting floaters and they're going in. And I could tell, I was like, yeah, Tyler's been working with guys in the background on this stuff, and it's been pretty awesome to see.
He has really, to me, reached a new level of comfort. It looks
Mhm.
like it like that Boston matchup. Like, okay, let me frame it this way. So Philly and Washington, Tyler to me looked like what I've seen historically as a Heat fan with other superstars we've had, whether it was Jimmy or LeBron. Not saying Tyler's a superstar, but other like top tier NBA players, where it was like, oh, this is kind of like he's just messing around to see like what he can get away with. And I think it was the Philly game. He had that huge third quarter where it was just like, I mean, he dropped that one defender at the top of the key for a step back three. I mean, but what really showed growth to me was he had that same level of comfort against the Celtics. It wasn't
Mhm.
like he's like, oh, I'm only going to what I'm really comfortable with, or I'm playing more rigid. The Celtics game early on, he was doing that Chris Paul yo-yo fake pocket pass, which I
Yeah.
haven't even seen him do that much before. But Bam would set the pick, he would come off. And for people that aren't familiar, didn't see it, Tyler basically puts his ball kind of under, or puts his hand kind of under the ball as he spins it, which fakes a pass towards Bam, but then he keeps his dribble. And then off that, he had a floater. He did it again and then actually threw the pass to Bam. But it's just a very high level ball handling move that you really only do when you're exuding confidence, which Tyler always does. But this is a new level of comfort and poise.
Mhm.
It helps that since the losing streak, he's at 71% true shooting. Like,
I mean, he's been crazy
it's been
efficient. He's scoring like
insane.
crazy.
Almost 50% from three. So he's just been a monster. But yeah, inside the arc, I mean, his floater has been one of the best in the entire NBA this year. I think he's
Mhm.
up to like 52% on short mid-range shots, which is normally what floaters qualify as. He's at 65% at the rim. This is all per cleaning the glass. So, I think Stan Van Gundy talked about it during the Memphis game because that was a TNT broadcast, but Tyler has become an efficient three-level scorer. There's no portion of his scoring repertoire that you're kind of nervous about. And I think, like we've talked about all year, a lot of it is shot selection. Like, he
Yeah.
didn't instantly get way more athletic, and that's why he's better at finishing at the basket. He's being more selective. He's realizing, oh, there's too much help. I just need to go with the floater here. Oh, there's only one guy I can put a shoulder into him and finish. So yeah, the
Mhm.
poise. He's under 2 turnovers a game since the losing streak, which has been
Wow.
awesome, and still at like almost 6 assists, I believe. So yeah, just an incredible player.
And one thing I
And
wanted to note about just his scoring package and how he's scoring at all 3 levels is you're right, it's not like he really drastically changed his like physique or his style of play. The shot selection is incredible, but also when it comes to how he's gotten to the rim, I think it's been really awesome to see the angles he takes to get shots at the rim. He is not, a brute force kind of guy. He's not that much faster than other guys, but he's leveraged getting the right angle and he's developed a shot where he can go pretty wide away from the basket and get a layup that kisses off like the far right side of the glass. The amount of time I've seen him get layups that are just the craziest angles to me, I was like, this guy isn't getting it right to the rim. He's usually getting pushed away from it and able to score while moving away from the rim, but still pretty close from some really wide angles. And that is an incredibly difficult shot to make on a regular basis, but he's managed to do it very, very efficiently. And you can just tell he's been really, really drilling these different types of shots and practices and then shoot around because they go in at such a high clip. Like it's gotten to the point where I have the utmost confidence when he puts up a shot because everything just looks pure.
yeah, he's honed his craft. I mean, to me, it's almost like he's simplified his offensive game in a lot of ways. I know Charles Barkley and different players throughout history have always talked about you only really need a couple moves, like you need your
Hmm.
go-to and your counter. And Tyler is so skilled and came in so skilled. I feel like for several years of his early career, he was kind of exploring the studio space because I mean he could create shots at a high level, but they weren't always super efficient shots. They weren't shots you
Hmm.
might be able to depend on. And it feels like he's really honed his craft, really kind of sharpened his sword, if you will, to like, I'm in this spot. They're playing me this way. I can get to the step back. They're playing me this way. I can put a shoulder. I can get to the line. And you see that too with his combination of off ball and on ball scoring. He's
Hmm.
become an elite off ball scorer, which was not something he would always do. I mean, he could relocate and knock down. He's obviously been a great shooter, but he really is figuring out, like Duncan does. We talked about this last show. I mean, he's screening for guys. It's almost like if his like go to when he doesn't know what to do is to set an off ball screen, which is
Yeah.
so smart and so helpful for everyone else on the court. Like if a play is breaking down and Bam's just holding it at the elbow, Tyler's just going to go set him a screen, and that makes the whole defense kind of freak out because
Yeah,
that's so
especially
hard.
because the defense is so keyed in on Tyler most nights. Like it can be difficult keying in on a guy. If you're doubling a guy that's just setting screens on the weak side of the play, it's like your whole defense is out of whack. Like you're not in position, you're not focused on the ball. And Spo loves to run these dual action plays where something's happening on the ball and something's happening on the weak side just naturally because everybody's trying to do something, and it's been awesome to just watch him develop in that way. And he plays such a crucial part on that, given how much gravity he has right now on our team.
And even with all that offensive responsibility we just covered, I feel like this has been one of his stronger defensive stretches we've seen in a long time. Like to
Oh, yeah.
me, and people will laugh at this, but it almost feels Curry esque to me, where Steph could be a part of elite defenses, even though he wasn't an elite defender, because he played with supreme effort. He knew where to be and he knew who was going to help him.
Yeah.
Like Tyler really seems to understand, even in that Memphis game, for a while they're trying to hedge and recover because Jaw was trying to get Tyler switched onto him every time. But
Hmm.
then down the stretch, they just started switching because they're like, you know what? We're going to switch Tyler on Jaw. Tyler's going to make Jaw make a second move. You can't
Yeah.
ask him to get a stop, to get a steal, but he can make Ja do a second move, and that lets all the help be like, okay, Ja has committed to drive right or drive left. We saw Bam get the big block late in the game on Ja for that exact reason. So it's just, yeah, like I said early, it's just high effort level. He's fighting through screens, and that's while carrying a huge offensive burden without, Wiggins has been out, Duncan's been out,
Mhm.
Nico's been out. I mean, that's probably what, like three of our best five offensive
Yeah.
players on the roster. So yeah, you can't say enough about what Tyler's done. And I know Heat fans appreciate it because it really has been spectacular.
Yeah, and just to go to the next guy who's been really taking these games personally week by week, Bam Adebayo has been just everything we expect from Bam, but in such a well-rounded, confident way. We lost against Milwaukee, but not having Tyler out there is always kind of tough. And it's always nice to see Bam just take over without hesitation. I think he does take that matchup pretty personally. I think any matchup where the star on the other team is a big,
Or a guy
because
that's won Defensive Player of the Year that
yeah,
really gets him going.
for sure. So he was putting forth a lot of effort, but even in the games prior to that, just what he's able to do on the floor on a night to night basis on the offensive end, but also the defensive end, especially some of these games without Wiggins, where that would have been super helpful to have Wiggins. Um, it's just so special to watch, and these two in tandem is such an interesting pairing that works so well together. And I just am really satisfied. Like, I'm come to the end of the season with all the emotional turmoil. Just happy that these are my guys. Like, I really wouldn't trade them for the world right now, even though the rest of this roster's construction is probably going to be tough to watch over time. I'm happy that we still get to root on for these guys.
Yeah, that's well said. And yeah, you can't say enough about Bam. I mean, he guards Tatum, does an incredible job. Tatum really didn't get going until the third quarter of that game. He put Jaren Jackson Jr. in jail
Yeah.
on both sides of the court. Got him in foul trouble because even as a former defensive player of the year, Jaren Jackson Jr. was struggling to guard Bam, and then Bam locked him up on the other end. I think he finished with like Jaren did with like 13 points or something. So, yeah, Bam, you can't say enough about it. And then also, like Tyler, since the losing streak, Bam is shooting like 50% from three.
Oh my gosh, dude.
And
It's
his
automatic
number,
from that corner. It's
dude. And
crazy.
I mean, this is what we talked about. Like, we had conversations months ago about like, should Bam just give up on the three? Like, is it worth it? And we
Mhm.
both thought he should keep going with it. And it seems like we're starting to see some of the fruits of that labor because he's looking confident in it, and teams are leaving him wide open. Like we saw Brooke Lopez would not even come out there early in the game, and Bam hit three in the first quarter against
Yeah.
Milwaukee, and Milwaukee changed their coverage. Like they put Giannis on him. Giannis had to play further up on Bam. It could be a game changer. I think on the season, using cleaning the glass, which filters out like half court heaves and stuff. I want to say Bam's at like 34%, 35%. That's not bad for his first real season experimenting with this. That
Yeah.
makes me pretty optimistic that we could see this going in the right direction.
Yeah, it seems to be worthwhile the growing pains at the beginning of the season for his shot selection, and that lack of decision making when it came to the shot, I think, was what we were most concerned about halfway through the season, and that we weren't really sure if he knew when he was supposed to be taking the shot. But they seem to have really simplified it. That he mostly just takes open threes from the corner and at the top of the key, which makes sense. Like, sure, you could dribble into something else, but if you're open and you got like a 35 to 40% chance of making it, you might as well take the shot. And it's been going in at a very good clip that I'm excited about. You
That's
want
a
to move
great.
on, or
Well, yeah, I wanted to you just reminded me of something that I'd kind of forgotten this, but yeah, that was something you and I talked about a lot was, man, Bam picking and popping is kind of messing up the offense. Like it's
Mhm.
the ball handlers don't really seem to know when he's going to roll versus pop. And I'll have to watch it more keenly now, but I think he stopped popping altogether now. He just rolls, and all his threes are coming off of when someone else drives or someone runs a pick and roll with
Mhm.
Kalel and the defense sags off of Bam. And he's just catching standstill, catch and shoot threes. And I mean, that's so impactful. He doesn't have to take, the Kristaps Porzingis, 6 threes a game off pick and pops. Like if he
Yeah.
can just knock it down and the defense plays off of them, that would be game changing. So that was a good point by you. I kind of forgotten that was something we were worried
I was
about.
wondering what was so different, and I was like, I guess the only thing is it looks like he's just kind of taking catch and shoot threes
Hmm.
without that. So hopefully
Yeah.
they keep that up. I'm excited to talk about this next guy. I'm not sure which one you want to talk about, but I'm excited about both. But I'll let
Well,
you pick.
let's. I want to start with Pella. So
Yeah,
Pella Larson, um,
man.
he is someone that I find myself trying to stay calm about my expectations because Pella has looked so sharp. He's had some games where he hasn't been stellar, but during that winning stretch, he had, I believe it was 3 straight games where he played over 30 minutes and play or around 30 minutes and scored 14 or more points. I believe he scored like 14, 15, and 16, 3 games in a row. One of those being in Boston, where he had a very nice performance. Really good defense, was
Oh
guarding
my
Tatum
gosh.
and Brown, had strong drives, was getting his head down. A lot of people have made different comparisons for Pella. One of which I really don't like is Goran Dragic, because I'm like, that's just, y'all are
That's
not
just racist.
yeah, like y'all are not being creative. But I will tell you, and people might say this about me for the same reason, but seeing a role player on the Heat go into Boston with hard drives and tough defense, I was like, there is some Caleb Martin to this
Mhm.
kid. Like he
Yeah.
he is tough. He does not like him throwing the ball to Tatum after he scored on him,
Oh
and
my
Tatum
gosh, dude.
started
What
complaining
a
about a delay of
crybaby.
game. I was like, I could literally see Caleb doing that. So that's what he's kind of been reminding me of. What have you seen from Pella lately?
Dude, just the confidence to make the right plays. And it's what we saw early in Summer League last year. We were like, the one thing about this guy is he looks like he knows ball. Like he just straight up looks like a guy who he touches the floor and knows exactly what's going on. He never looks lost. He never looks confused. There's a few possessions in there. He's in transition with Kalel, two rookies, just not supposed to be interacting this much on the floor in important games. But overall, he's always making a smart play. He's always very active with the ball or without the ball. And what I was most impressed about was how much he got to the free throw line in that game. I was like, this guy is generating contact. Like, if he can take a step with athleticism, with his ball handling, like he could be dangerous because he already seems to be a gamer. Like he seems to know like the pace of the game and the way to make the game come to you much easier. He works hard, but he also works smart, and that's a very dangerous combination in a guy like that. So it was really awesome to see. His defensive effort on guys. I think there's been like 2 or 3 games now where he's gotten like 4 more steals. He's just really active. I think he had Philly just he was just a nightmare for the Philadelphia 76ers, and they really couldn't keep up with him. And yeah, I'm super excited to see what happens. And, I'll push back on trying to stay calm. You might as well get crazy about him because worst case scenario is he falls off a cliff like Jaime Jaquez Jr. and we draft somebody else in the second round that can do the same thing for a year.
Yeah,
It's like, I don't know if you've
it's
seen the Prestige, but I don't want to spoil it for you. Have you seen the Prestige?
I have not.
Okay, well, I can't talk too much about it because it would be crazy. But anybody who's seen The Prestige and remember Hugh Jackman's situation, just know that we can just keep doing this forever and ever and ever because there's just always going to be somebody who can fill this role. And I'm so just happy that we get to see this guy on the court because,
Yeah, yeah, and the expectation thing you point out, I mean, I hate to say it because I love Jaime, but that is part of my hesitation to get too excited, is
mhm,
because Jaime and Pella were fairly similar as far as like college guys that have played multiple years, were pretty NBA ready, were drafted to be role players. Obviously, Jaime was a first round pick and Pella was a second round pick, but you could see similarities there. And the other thing they have in common that is concerning me is they both, I feel like at the end of their rookie season, everybody's thought was, man, if they get that 3-point shot figured out, the Heat have something. And
yeah,
Jaime has not figured that out. And it's honestly cost him his rotation spot.
it's true.
And but I will say Pella has a much better pedigree as a shooter. So if you're a
Yeah,
Heat fan, you've only watched Pella on the Heat, you probably think like the mechanics look a little funky. He's shooting like 32% from three this year. So it doesn't look great. But what I can tell you is at Arizona and at one season at Utah for his college career, Pella shot almost 40% from three when he was drafted almost as a shooter for the Heat. In college, he took about 5.5 threes per 100 possessions. In the NBA, he's taken 6 threes per 100 possessions. So similar volume. And sometimes it just takes guys a year to acclimate to the longer 3 point line and figure that out. So I am cautiously more optimistic about Pella's shooting than I was Jaime. Jaime, I think his best year from three in college was like 35 or 36%, or that's
Yeah.
around what his career average was in
Yeah.
college.
I was just
So I,
looking at his rookie season. He only shot like 30% from three.
sorry, I
And
cut out for a second, Lino. Could you start over on that?
Yeah, sorry. I was just saying that I was looking for Jaime Jaquez Jr. in his rookie year. He only shot 30% from three, I believe.
Hmm.
But with Pele, I like the shot. And I think one of the very important things to note about that situation with shooting, part of it is confidence. And Pele looks incredibly more decisive and confident when he has an open three to take. Like, he's not going to make them at a particularly high clip, but he's going to shoot it almost instantaneously. He's not going to do any kind of hesitation or dribble to the left or try to drive into nothing. He's just going to shoot it and live with the consequences unless someone really, really closes out on him, and then he'll take advantage of that. And I think that's an important structure for someone that's going to turn into a good shooter or could, just get better at that. My fears with Jaime was that he was just he never really had that structure. He was always very hesitant. Like, you could tell that he didn't think he was a good shooter. And it was very apparent when he's on the floor. Whereas with Pele, I don't think he thinks he's bad at anything. So that can go a long way and could be the big difference maker between the both of them when it comes to, the next stage of their careers.
I think that's a good way to distinguish it. I agree because to me it felt like Jaime took threes because he felt like he was supposed to. It didn't feel like he
Hmm.
was comfortable. Like his comfort zone is the mid range post bag, like getting
Yeah.
into different moves. Pella, it does seem like his comfort zone, similar to the Caleb Martin comfort zone, is if I'm open, I'm taking a shooting this three. If you close out, I'm driving as hard as I can and trying to finish through three people or get to the
Hmm.
free throw line. So yeah, super optimistic about Pella. Lino, I want to ask you this. So we've talked a little bit about the Heat's off season, and we're expecting the roster to look pretty similar next year. I feel like personally, there's a chance Pella is the starter next year beside Tyler in the backcourt because you need a defender beside Tyler. You need shooting. That's why they've been starting Alec Burks and Duncan Robinson. If Pella can put the shot together enough, I think the coaching staff would feel comfortable with him guarding the best guard on the other team every night. What do you think about that, and how likely do you think that might be?
I just don't think he's a better player than Davion Mitchell, and I don't know that he has skills that are much better than what Davion brings to the table, even from a shooting standpoint, like, and a defensive standpoint. Davion just kind of can do both of those things relatively better than Pellet can right now. So that's always been the backcourt for me that I love the most is Davion and Tyler. But him being a starter, I would not be mad at. I would be very excited about it, and I generally trust Spo with my life. So it
Right.
would be not an easy or not a hard thing for me to sign on for. And I'd be very interested to see. I did, unless you had more stuff to say about Pelle Larson, I did want to talk about Davion Mitchell a little bit.
Yeah, definitely would be a
Who's
great time
been
to transition. What
he's
have you seen from Davion?
he's been kicking people's butt.
He has.
He's real offensively, defensively. This is a very skilled basketball player. I was just rewatching his assists and his points or his shots, his all of his field goals from the Celtics game as well as I believe the Memphis game, and I was just like, wow, this guy like has a lot of skills and is very young. It's like pretty far along for how young he is. I can't remember exactly how old he is, but I just found myself really impressed with what he did there against Boston in particular. He was a part of, a greater thing that the team did as a whole in attacking mismatches. Like, there wasn't a lot of skill level mismatches, but this is one of the first times in a long time where guys like got a big on them, and we have guards who can get a big on them, and then take them to the basket because they can't keep up. Or bigs who, get somebody smaller on them and take advantage of that. Andrew Wiggins loves to find a guard and put them in the post. Bam, Kalel, they all can, take advantage of those situations. Davion Mitchell is one of our guards who loves to, get to the basket if the opportunity is there. A lot of transition stuff, a lot of opportunities where I think they were playing Jason Tatum at the 5 or had a relatively smaller lineup out there, or he was able to get the center to come out away from the paint. They would just take advantage of every single one of those moments, get to the rim, get fouled, or put it in the basket. And he's a big part of that because, I was always curious as to why the Kings and the Raptors didn't really seem to, highlight him or really focus on his growth as a player, just because people, generally loved him on the defensive end. I was like, then he must be pretty deficient when it comes to offensive skills. And while he may not have the most efficient games all the time, I think all the skills are there, and I think there's still a really incredible growth path for him for the rest of his career. So I'll be very excited to see that. And I love that he's incredibly online all the time. That's been fun to watch happen as well. But what are you seeing from Davion out there?
Yeah, so you referenced with Pella like that Davion's better at all those things, and I was like, yeah. So why isn't he starting right now? I think my guess is Spo likes two high level shooters around the Where Bam
Hmm.
lineup, but my fun conspiracy theory is if you guys notice, so during like post losing streak, essentially Davion has been second on the team in minutes. He's been playing like 34 minutes a game off the bench. And Spo, if you notice, like 6 minutes into the first quarter and 6 minutes into the third quarter, Davion comes in. There have been multiple games he doesn't come back out after that. And I almost wonder if Spo is like, I'll play this dude 48 minutes if I don't bring him off the bench. He's like, I can't bring myself to take him out of the game, so I
It's
have to
tough.
bring him off the bench. I mean, if you look at on-off numbers, number one on the team,
Hmm.
Davion Mitchell. If you look at 3-point shooting, since he's been a member of the Heat, 46% from three.
Yeah, what is that about?
The passing has been great, and he's one of the rare fun players where he's more likely to be more aggressive with his shot in the clutch. Like
Hmm.
like during the course of a game, he's trying to set guys up. There are moments where I'm like, Davion, like be aggressive. Like like in the transition, he'll push it, but in half court, he's really trying to hit guys and stuff. And then in a tight, close game, it's just like step back three out of nowhere. And I'm like, whoa.
Where did that
And
come from?
and again, 46%, like a lot of those have been going in, and I'm never mad at him for taking them. I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
man, go for it. And yeah, he's been a joy to watch. And the Heat have had some really great six men, especially in recent years. We basically went from Dwayne Wade to Goran Dragic to Tyler Herro. And now Davion, I mean, he's not the same caliber of those players, but it is that thing of like, and when there's 6 minutes left in the first and I see him at the scorers table, if things haven't been going well, I'm like, okay, thank goodness.
Finally.
He's going to switch. The energy's going to shift. He's going to pick guys up full court. He's just been awesome. And he also brings something that this team has been missing really since the first or second year of Kyle Lowry being here, which is a guard that can switch. Like
Hmm.
in the Boston game, he had some great reps on Tatum. And Tatum's massive. Like that dude guards centers a lot of the time. He's probably like 6'10, 265 or something. Like he's huge. And Davion had some great reps on him. The very next game had some awesome defense on Ja Morant. Like I think I don't want to stress Heat fans out. He is a restricted free agent this summer, and I think it'll be the Heat's number one priority to keep him. And
Yeah.
I would think with what a hand and glove fit it has been in Miami, that he and his representation will prioritize staying in Miami as well because
Mhm.
it's just too perfect of a fit for it not to
Now,
work.
now that you mention that, I don't want to get us too off track from the plan, but I've always wanted us to do a few more gimmicks in our podcast. So I put together a gimmick here. I got three players whose contract situations will be, a little different moving forward. Some of them will be under contract, but we can still make decisions. And I want to play a game called Extend, Trade, and Walk. So I got
Ooh.
three players, and you can extend one of them, You can, and that extension probably end up giving them, a higher paying contract. You can trade one of them and try to get something back, but the other you have to let walk.
Okay.
Either they, I don't know what situation we would have to do that in, but
I
the
mean,
three players,
we're against the luxury tax,
yeah,
so
so that's probably what might happen. The three players I have are Duncan Robinson, Davion Mitchell, and Haywood Highsmith.
oh
Which would you extend? Which would you trade? And which would you let walk?
dang. So I can only keep one.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh, okay. That's really tough. Okay, I think for me the easy thing is trade Haywood.
Hmm.
I like Haywood a lot, but I do think there are other guys on the roster that can do what he does, and I also think he'd be very valuable to a contender. So I think we could actually like get a couple seconds or something because his contract is so inexpensive. So
Wow.
I'll say trade Haywood be- because of the value we could get back. I mean, I could use him as the walk as well, but I'll say trade Haywood. The other two, oh,
That's a
see,
crazy
okay.
situation you put yourself in because now you have to let one of these guys
Right.
walk.
And realistically, this could be a situation the Heat face this summer. For those of you who don't know, Duncan
Mm.
Robinson has an early termination option on his contract, which essentially means it's partially guaranteed. So the Heat could allow him just to be a free agent this summer, which there are some scenarios where they have to do that to be able to pay Davion. So Lino, great game by you because this is literally something the Heat front office has probably discussed. And yeah, in that situation, because Alec Burks is probably gone after this year. Like he's not going to be on
Mhm.
the minimum anymore. Because he's kind of replaced a lot of what Duncan can do when he's hurt. But gosh, I think I extend Davion and let Duncan walk. I
Ooh, that's the
Davion,
right answer. That's the right answer. I
yeah,
just didn't know if that would be the answer you could
it's
give.
so tough. Duncan's so valuable, especially for Bam.
Mhm.
Duncan makes Bam's life so much easier. Um, but Davion's a little younger. He's a great, culture fit. And yeah, hopefully they keep both. But if I had to choose, I would extend Davion.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's the right decision. And that's the conversation I was kind of having with myself going into this next season because, there's a chance this roster looks similar, but I think financially speaking, the position the team wants to be in, I don't know that we can keep all three of those guys in the same way that they are currently contractually obligated now. I don't see a scenario where we really pay Duncan that much because I don't think we can really fool ourselves into doing that again. But he's been
Hmm.
good. He had a couple years within the contract which were really rough, but
Hmm.
he's been much, much better since then. But I don't think there's a scenario where Pat Riley says we're going to sign up for 4 more years of that.
Agreed.
And
I
I
do
don't know
think
that. Go
Well,
ahead.
sorry, I do think they'll fully guarantee the contract for
Yeah,
next
yeah, yeah.
season
At
for
least
2
one more
reasons.
season.
Yeah, because then you have him under contract for 1 more year, and he's a pretty good player on a almost $20 million expiring contract. So,
Mhm.
in theory, you go into the season, you have his expiring contract, Rozier's expiring contract, and then you could get up to 40-50 million dollars pretty easily with those players if there's a trade available. So I would guess my guess for the summer, and we'll do more shows on this, is Terry is the main guy that they're going to try and move to free up financial breathing room
Mhm.
for these other guys. We're talking about it, and again, Terry will be an expiring contract, but a team's still going to have to sign up for a full year of Terry. So
Yeah.
I don't know what the draft compensation for that would look like. Not to do another game, but would you give up 1 second to move Terry? Would you give up a protected first? Like, what's your cutoff for how much you'd attach to Terry?
And
To
this is essentially gun to my head. If we don't do this, we're probably going to lose Davion Mitchell because we won't be able to pay him.
yeah.
Yeah. We do so good in the second round draft. I feel like more than other teams, except maybe the Golden State Warriors and the Celtics. Like, I really value our second round draft picks, and I always get kind of sad to see them walk out of the door, especially since we have so many first round draft picks in play right now. Um, that ideally, I'd love to keep it at one, but I would move him for two, especially if we got like another guy on a minimum or something that was just cheaper,
Mhm.
and made a little bit more sense for us. That would be ideal. Like, yeah, if we could bring in talent despite
Mhm.
taking away a draft pick. Maybe someone like under 10, under $5 million a year, or someone just on a better expiring contract.
Yeah. Yeah, that to me is the dream scenario. It's not like you have to trade Terry away for nothing. You could just,
Mhm.
trade his $22 million salary away for like guy making 12 million or 13
Yeah.
million. Then you might be able to get into a situation where you can keep the other guys we've talked about. And maybe even they attach Haywood to Terry is like that
Mhm.
kind of being the facsimile of the value of the draft capital. So lots of conversations for the summer. But yeah, I do think they're going to have to figure out a way to move probably Rozier or Duncan, just because that's, a lot of
Mhm.
money being tied up in guys, especially in Terry's case, that just haven't been able to produce that much,
Um,
unfortunately.
and you mentioned a guy that I wanted to circle back to because we actually haven't talked about his performance yet, and he's been crazy good for some reason, and probably the most shocking way. But Alec Burks is just a really freaking good basketball player. It's just completely unstoppable from deep, and also can get into his bag a little bit when we need him to, and is only making $3 million a year. And it just begs the question, like, what was happening and that he couldn't be in the rotation earlier in the season. Like, it took him a long time to get into the rotation this year. And he's been really good. Like, I honestly haven't witnessed much like bad basketball from him. There's, some games where his shot wasn't going in, but overall, like, he's just an effective basketball player and a really good role player. So, what are you thinking about this, week of great Alec Burks basketball?
Yeah, lifetime contract, brother. If you're good with a minimum, you can stay here as long as you want. The ultimate professional, dude.
Mhm.
I mean, he is. Like if I was Alec Burks, I'd be like, yo, Rozier over me for like 45 games. I'm shooting
Yeah.
40% from three. What's not computing? But he's just been like, cool, whatever you need to do. Like, oh, I get to play tonight. Here's 3 of 6 from three. Let me know if I can do anything else for you. I mean, he has been incredible. Great smile. Side note, seems like a great locker room guy,
Yeah.
always in a good mood. And yeah, just a lethal shooter. I mean, Duncan being out could have really hurt the offense. And Alec was like, oh, I got you. Just got 50% from three for a week. No problem. And that's kind of been what he's done all season. I want to at some point go through and look at all the minimum contracts that were signed this past offseason, because there's just no way he's not the best or second best one. I mean, when they signed him, I was like, oh, okay, cool, like some insurance shooting. You see minimum contract, you're like, well, that is not going to matter too much. Well, that was what Josh Richardson was a couple summers
Yeah.
ago, and unfortunately, Josh didn't really ever produce for us. And Alec has done all that and more. So I fear he's probably going to get, maybe the taxpayer mid level or something
Yeah.
this summer.
Someone's gonna
Probably.
pay for that shooting for sure.
Yeah, and honestly, last year was the outlier where he didn't shoot well. The rest of his
Mhm.
career, he's basically been 40% from three. This year is his best effective field goal percentage season ever, according to Cleaning the Glass. So, I mean, he's really shooting the blood out of the ball. But yeah, Alec Burks can be on my team any day of the week, man. I am a huge, huge fan. Very like Wayne Ellington type
Mhm.
vibes, just like
Yeah.
sniper, good vibes, does what he needs to do on defense. And like you alluded to, I mean, he can run a pick and roll. He can take a guy off the bounce if it's a mismatch.
Yeah.
So
And the one
yeah.
thing that I appreciate about Alec Burks that always not bugged me, that was just difficult to deal with Duncan Robinson, is that a bad night or an off night for Alec Burks throughout this season didn't really affect him one way or the other. Maybe because the stakes are lower, his role in the team is much less important. But with Duncan, if he had a bad game, you kind of always had the fear that he was going to go on a stretch of really bad games and not really being able to get out of that headspace. With Alec Burks, he could just come back and go 3 for 6 in the next game. Something like that. So it's nice just to have like a pure shooter who's like a professional guy who just comes in, does his job. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But with Duncan, I think, just going through really long stretches of poor shooting, obviously at a much higher volume and in a much bigger role, it's kind of nice to not have so much emotional attachment to every game that Alec Burks plays. And that could change. We're probably going to have an episode this summer where we talk about all this stuff money wise. But is there a situation where we pay Burks like 8-10 million dollars and try to move like some other contracts to make that happen, or do you feel like we should kind of just let
I,
that
it, it'll
slide?
be. Honestly, I think a lot of it'll probably be determined by the demand for Davion for as far as
Mhm.
other teams, because I would think the Heat try and stop him from even reaching restricted free agency. I think they just try and get a deal before he has to go to any other team.
I think he
But
likes it here.
yeah, but if a team is like driving his price up, then I could see them pivoting to making sure Burks is taken care of. I'd have to look it up. I believe the taxpayer mid level is like 6 million a year, so
Mhm.
I'd be fine if Burks was brought back on that contract. I mean, it never hurts to have extra shooting.
For sure, for
And
sure.
and the Heat, while they don't have a lot of top end talent, they have some pretty good depth. We've talked all season about how many like, kind of C plus to B minus guys they have, and that's what you'd get with a taxpayer mid level. So I wouldn't mind them using that to keep somebody that we know works in the system.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the only guy we haven't talked about was Kyle Anderson,
Really
who
good, man. That dude's a good basketball player.
I
Wow.
I don't want to be like I told you so or be like a guy like well, so not like I was just some big slow mo guy, but I really didn't understand why he wasn't getting rotation minutes in Golden State and why he was kind of just thrown into this trade as like just something that was going to get moved to Toronto. I was like, last time I checked, like Kyle Anderson was like a really smart basketball player and
Mhm.
like really effective on the floor. Just I guess harkening back to when he first got his nickname and what was that? His days in Minnesota? Was he playing in Minnesota at that time?
Minnesota and
Yeah.
Memphis, yeah.
Yeah, I was like, this guy was really awesome, like for the most part. Not like the high end isn't really high, like the ceiling isn't high, but as far as role players go, like this is a really dependable player, and we've lacked that for a long time. And so it's been nice to see him crack into the rotation in a way that really tailors towards his skill set and shows off the things that he's good at. His passing has been awesome. The way he controls the pace of the game, especially with the lack of like a pure true point guard on our team, like having more people who can distribute the way he can and really keep things calm when things get crazy. It's been pretty special.
Yeah, and credit to Spo too. We've talked about this in previous episodes, but figuring out the best way to use him. I mean,
Mhm.
and Kyle Anderson said this in a post game press conference recently, or a post game interview on FanDuel Sports. But he was saying, yeah, if you stick me in the corner, like I'm not going to be able to help the team very much, and basically saying like he's not a knockdown shooter and he doesn't have a fast release, and so he's not going to get guarded out there. So Spo decided we're going to bring you off the bench. We're going to play you in units where you can, basically split the ball handling duties with Davion Mitchell, and he's excelled in that. We talked about it before with Bam and different guys, but when you put the ball in someone's hand, you can't play 15 feet off of them. You have to
Mhm.
respect them as a ball handler, not let them get ahead of steam. And he's been awesome, man. I mean, the basketball IQ is the thing that jumps off the page. I mean, he has made some great passes, some
Oh
great
my gosh.
decisions. He's just a great connector. He just really keeps your offense moving. Football analogy, keeps the chains moving. He's gonna make the right play over and over again. And yeah, and then his unique style is just fun to watch too. The way he can elongate that 1-2 step into his finish, let the guy fly by, all the classic kind of slow mo stuff he's been known for in his career. But yeah, like when the Jimmy trade happened and it was like, oh, Kyle Anderson's going to Utah or Toronto or wherever, it was a financial thing because he does have like 2 more years left on his contract. So it's like,
Yeah.
well, you don't want that on the books necessarily, but it's not a bad contract. It was just because of the Heat's contract situation where they're kind of expensive for where they are as a playing team.
Mhm.
But his contract's fine because I mean that's a winning player, and boy, you can tell Spo loves him. Spo, I
Yeah.
think it was after the Boston game where Slow Mo had like 17 or something.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, Spo was like, I can't say enough about Kyle. And it's like you
He
could
just seemed
tell.
like a really spo player. Like this is a
Yeah.
guy who's supposed to play in a system like this, in a system that's built around, a prototypical, passing forward like Bam Adebayo. Like a guy like Kyle Anderson was gonna slot into that in a substitute role pretty easily because he can still
Mhm.
do all the passing and screening that's required for that role.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it's working out pretty well for him. And
I mean,
hopefully,
Spo figured out how to use PJ Tucker as a passing hub, like,
yeah,
and it worked well. Like PJ did a good job. It's the only time in his career he's done that, and you're seeing the same thing with Kyle. I also, speaking of gimmicks, we could start including. We should do like a draft for current players on the roster most likely to be an assistant coach in the next 5 years. I could definitely see Kyle Anderson as a Heat assistant in the
oh
near
yeah.
future.
Absolutely. It would be a perfect fit. He might be the next GM for all we know.
Yeah, hey, listen, I'd be down for it. So yeah, that takes us kind of the last thing of the show, which is the standings update. A little bit of a somber note because the Heat have lost two in a row. It is looking um, pretty much like a foregone conclusion that they will be in that 9-10 game. There is a chance still that they could get to the ninth seed. To lay it out for you guys, there's about 4 games left. For the Heat, the only game against a team that will be making the postseason is at Chicago. And that is, of course, very important because Chicago is the team that the Heat are jockeying with for this 9-10 matchup. So, some context for that. The Heat's other 3 games, Philly, New Orleans, Washington, all those teams are tanking. No excuses. The Heat should win all 3 of those pretty comfortably, and I think they will. But Chicago's remaining games also feature Philly and Washington. And I want to say maybe, they're playing Charlotte right now. They're like up 15. So, Chicago's probably going to win out, but they have a game against Cleveland Tuesday, which is April 8th, I think.
Hmm.
That I hope would be too early for Cleveland to be shutting guys down for the playoffs, even though they're pretty much guaranteed the 1 seed. It's not a back to back for Cleveland or anything. So that is a game, if you're a Heat fan, to watch very closely because you kind of need Chicago to lose that game. If they lose that game and the Heat can beat them on Wednesday, then the Heat could very well get the 9 seed. The reason that we need them to lose an additional game is Chicago does have the tiebreaker over Miami. So it's not a situation where we could finish with the same record as them, and we're currently a full game behind them. So we do need one more loss in addition to beating Chicago, and that's with the expectation that these Miami and Chicago beat all the bad teams they're going to be playing, which of course is the NBA. Crazy things happen. And the one other note, I didn't realize the Wednesday game against Chicago is the second night of a back-to-back for Chicago and not Miami.
Oh,
So
wow.
that is beneficial. So we'll see how Chicago kind of treats that with that game against Cleveland on Tuesday, but they really need to win both of those. And, we'll see what happens. But as we all know, being home for that 9-10 game would be very helpful. A 10 seed has never actually made it out of the play-in to the playoffs. It's a short history for the play-in, but it couldn't hurt to be able to host that first game.
Oh, yeah. Let's do it. I feel good about our chances, and I want to see some Miami Heat playoff basketball. At the end of all this, even 4 games, 5 games, I think we could steal 1 or 2 from a top seed over there in Cleveland. Um, I would like to see it. If we're gonna have a rough off season, not much going on in the draft, and next season is just kind of up in the air, we might as well get a little bit of playoff basketball. So here's hoping the guys, stick with it. I know they want to win. I know they're focused on making the most out of this season with the guys they have, and I'll be rooting for them the whole way.
Yeah, as well said. And like we've talked about on the show before, when there was a chance the Heat could get like the 8th pick in the draft, then it kind of made sense to want to miss the playoffs. The Heat have won so much now. They're probably going to be like picking somewhere between 10 and 12. At that point, you'd really rather give up the draft pick like we talked about in previous shows. So yeah, I'm 100% with you. Quick question just to end the show. Now that we're pretty sure we're going to be in the play-in and playing Chicago definitely in the first round, of Orlando and Atlanta, who would you rather play to make the playoffs in that second game?
Atlanta for sure.
Agreed.
Yeah, I haven't been watching the Magic as much as I did at the beginning of the season, but it's just not. They just feel like a team that can just get going, and I feel pretty good about our track record with the Hawks so far. I
Yeah.
say that, and they'll blow us out by 50, but
It's certainly
um,
possible. But yeah, I just the game plan, the road map against Atlanta makes a lot more sense to me. I feel
mhm,
like every Miami Orlando game for the past couple years has been really close.
freaking rock
Defensive
fights.
Yeah, defensive blood match where it's like I don't want to have to deal with all that. I'd rather figure out the best way to double team Trey Young and, stop everybody else. So yeah, that's where we're at, team. But we'll see. Next time we record, we might be previewing the play-in. So get excited. Hopefully, the Heat don't lose another game. That's kind of what we need to happen. We need to close the season 4-0 and hopefully be able to get that 9 seed and make a push for the play-in and maybe scare Cleveland or somebody. So we'll
Oh
see
yeah,
what happens. But thank you all for tuning in. Another fun episode of Heat of the Moment. As always, check us out on all the different platforms: YouTube, Spotify. We always really appreciate the YouTube comments. Like and subscribe if you're on there. For myself and Lino, we'll talk to you guys next time, and go Heat.